Okay, this is part two. We're going to work on making the main body of the Feudal main battle tank, starting out with the Maker's Cult Feudal Transport solid full hull STL file. So it's the full piece. And the first thing I'm going to want to do is I want to make it shorter. So I want to cut out sort of this middle section here. And I really want just the front, and I want it to end roughly around here, give or take. So what I'm going to do, first thing, I open the file. I'm going to click Import Model. That imports it. I'm going to click on it. It looks fine. There's no red triangle around, or red square around the bottom, rectangle. So the file's fine. I'm going to go to Edit. I have to have the file selected. You'll see when I don't have any files selected, these are all grayed out. When I have a file or a component selected, I get options. So the option I want to do is a split. What the split does is this green plane, it's going to slice the model, right? And you can change where it cuts, right? So you can make it diagonal, you can make it vertical, whatever. What I want to do, and again, this is just like the other rotate. If you do it outside, it's real easy to get any angle you want, but it's hard to snap. If you do it inside the circle, it'll snap to 90. I could also go here and type in 45 if I wanted. I can type in, I think it was -90. Now if I do this right now and I click split, it'll only keep the back half. You can keep what they call the top, which is this side of the plane, the bottom, which is this side of the plane, or you can keep both. I want to keep both, so I'm going to click split. And now you'll see when it did this, it put the red rectangle around because now it has some problems with this file. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect the front part. I'm not going to deal with the red triangle quite yet, or the red, I keep saying triangle, red rectangle quite yet. I'm going to deselect this so only the back half is selected. I'm going to do split again. I'm going to do this again, put it at 90 again. And this time I only want to keep the back half. And you can grab this. See when my cursor goes on the blue, you can grab it and you can drag it, so it'll give you as much or as little as you want. I'm thinking what I want to do is kind of put the cut right between this space. So like that, because I think that vent looks cool, but I also kind of want to be conscious about not losing a rivet, so I'll do it just on that side of the rivet. I think that's pretty good, so let me split. Okay, now this file looks good, this file looks good, and you can kind of see where it split. Do you see these weird lines here? This is the problem it is having. So I'm going to go ahead and click one or more objects are invalidly defined, click here to repair. I'll click here to repair. It's going to think a little bit. More complex items or components take longer to repair. If I tried to import this into a slicer right now for 3D printing, you would get that, potentially get that weird error where like layers are missing or blocks are missing and you don't know why it happened. I assume everyone listening to this has run into that issue at some point with a 3D printer. And I don't know if you can hear, but the fan on my laptop is going absolutely nuts right now. But hopefully it's almost done. Yep, there, it's almost done. So now when I click on it, it's full. And now what I want to do, and this is really going to vary on the model whether or not you can get away with this. And actually I can see that I kind of botched this right here. So see how my cut wasn't great? I really want the cut to be right on this line where this gap is. So I'm actually going to do it again. I'm going to put it at 90 degrees, so vertical. I want to keep the bottom, I don't want to keep the top half. We'll go here, and let me kind of zoom in a little bit so I can see it better. And there, that'll give me that divot, right? So let me split. Okay, so now I've got a front half and a back half. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back half, and because this thing was designed more or less horizontal, it'll snap into place. I don't know if you can see that. Snap into place. So now There's a little bit of a gap here, but I think when I print, that's not going to be noticeable, especially because that's where my treads are going to be. Okay, so that's kind of going to be the main body. And I hope I'm not giving anyone vertigo here, but this is how I tend to design. I like to look at all aspects. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, I'm going to add, and load object. And now, and I realized after this, on my screen, I'm getting a standard Windows dialog box where I can go through and find the file I want to open. I'm just navigating for an STL file, and I'm clicking open on that STL file, and this is the result. It pops open like this. So let me click import model, right? This is just a one of the treads from a Leman Rust file that I found on Thingiverse that I thought would look pretty cool. It's actually two parts, so let me click add and add the second part. The second part is just the, I'll call it like the inside of the tread. So let me hit import. Okay, and again, first thing I'm going to do is kind of move it. So this is the inside facing and this is the outside facing. So kind of weird how this works out, but what I want to do is first let me make this kind of position the right way. So I'm going to go to my rotate tool. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. I'm going to leave it there for a second. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to also rotate it 90 degrees, but it's facing the wrong direction. So I'm going to take the other arrow here, click on it, and rotate it all the way around so that it's 180 degrees. Now I just need to line these up. Let me move this up a little bit. Unclick. Let me move this up a little bit so that it's on the floor. You can kind of see when it hits the floor. There, it hit the floor. Okay, now I need to line this up. Now, fortunately, it's going to snap right to the wall, and now I just need to get it to line up. And this is going to be a little annoying. There we go. So to move stuff around, I was getting this wrong. You hold down Shift and you do a right click, and you can move stuff around. Oops. So I want to move this so that the hole or these square pegs line up, and you can kind of see the square pegs. And it doesn't have to be really exact for this purpose. That looks pretty darn close. And then what this does is it just gives me, unselect, gives me a nice tread. So let me highlight both of them, get them pointed in the right direction. Oops. I can Control Z to undo that. I want the other circle. Sometimes you have to kind of change the orientation so you can get the arrow. Okay. So this is my tread. Let me move it a little bit this way, move it a little bit this way. You can see that my body part is way too small, but I want to move it maybe probably roughly there. Let me move it out a little bit. So let me unselect both of them, and I think you can actually group these. Object, where is it under? You can merge the two. I don't want to merge the two, but I don't bother grouping quite yet. So let me unselect both of them. Let me grab this and grab this, and I'm going to just try to make it bigger where I think it would sort of be reasonable. Like, it needs to go up a little bit off the ground. And then let me move it this way so that it's kind of like sticking into Leman Rust. That looks too big because I am going to do the turret. And if I had an actual Leman Rust here with me, I could kind of measure it out, but I think this looks pretty close. Quick move, kind of bury it in there a little bit, so that looks more or less okay. Maybe back it up just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think that looks pretty good. You guys think it looks pretty good? Probably. Now let me click on both of these. I'm going to duplicate, and then I'm going to mirror. And then I get my other tread, which, if you notice, is exactly the same kind of distance front to back. So this I can do here. You kind of have to look for, see how the tread's just kind of close there, but not quite touching. And then what I'm going to do is drag this one so it's looks about the same. Look about the same, a little farther. I'm sure there's like a better math way of doing this, but there you go. That's kind of the main body, right? Let me go ahead and unclick on these. Now I want to add the track guards. So insert, add. Let me do a load object. Let me go to track armor. Okay, import. And again, I'm just going to drag this off to the side, drag this up. Okay, try to position it sort of where I think it would be. But you can kind of see there's a huge problem here, right? It is way too big. It's way too big. That's not going to work. And I'm also thinking this is probably, that's probably a little better. Okay, so way too big, not going to work. Oh, and I did my own mistake thing. Let me hit, see, I only highlighted this when I moved it up. I didn't highlight the back half, so I'm going to hit Control Z to undo it. Highlight them both. Move it up a little bit. That's probably good. Unclick both. I'm going to click this. Drag it off to the side where I can work with it. And what I want to do, actually, I'll show you guys. What I want to do is I kind of want the front to be about there, but I want the end to kind of end here. So I need to cut out about from like here to here. Just cut a chunk out of it. And again, just dragging the arrow. So I'm going to do edit, split. And this is just going to be exactly like when I did the hull. So I'm going to do it this way. I want to put the plane, I think roughly about there will probably be good. This is a lot of like willy-nilly, like, it looks good to me. Oops, and I forgot to click both. So let me do Control Z for undo. Let me try to split that again and do it the right way this time. Let me do it here. And again, I said I want to keep both, so I click keep both. Split. Now undo this one, and I want to cut a piece out of this. So I'm going to split again, 90 degrees. I think probably about that much. We'll see. Sometimes I have to do this a couple of times. Click split, and you see I now have 3 pieces. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to hit the delete key on my keyboard because I don't really want that one. I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to drag it until it snaps into place. Because this is a horizontal, that works. If this were on an angle, it's a lot harder to do. So let me highlight both these pieces. See if I kind of ballparked it right. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not great. I think people will like that on the battlefield. And then what I'm going to do is, because I need it to kind of like, you kind of need it to overlap, so when you print it, it'll be connected together, and that'll overlap. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing where I go to the object tag with this, I hit duplicate, and then I hit mirror. It'll flip to the other side, and I'll drag it so that it looks, that looks right, that looks right, that looks right. That looks right to me. Okay, so our Leman Russ is coming along pretty well, but Leman Russes don't have this big weird empty part and a transport on the back, so we need to add some more stuff. So let me insert add. I'm going to pull in, what is it called? LR hull. So this again is from that Leman Rust file. So let me hit import. I'm going to just drag it over here. And really all I care about is this back portion. So before I do anything, I'm going to split it. Oop. And did I Did I get it to 90? Yeah, it just looked weird. And really, I want to keep kind of like this back portion here. I don't want to keep both. I just want to keep the top to split. And it's pointed the wrong direction, so let me go to my rotate. Let me spin it around. And then I need to put it in the right place. So change the movements, move it kind of there, kind of back, kind of up. I mean, it's eating into the treads on either side, so I do need to scale it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click lock. I'm going to click this. Oh, percentage. I want it on percentage. What does it mean, percentage? 1.5%? That's weird. Oh, because I split it. When you split something, it messes these numbers up. Anyway, I'm just going to kind of drag it down a little bit. Looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. You kind of want to make sure that there's a little bit of a gap here, a little bit of a gap here. You know, there's nothing weird. I'm not seeing anything weird. You can very easily like botch this if you leave a gap somewhere. On the bottom, it looks like it's probably okay. So deselect off that. So we've got kind of the back end. Now, you can kind of see here, it's going to look a little strange because you've got those. So maybe I actually want to move it up just a little bit more. And maybe it's not going to be as obvious that this is sitting over top of a hatch. I think it looks fine. I don't think anyone's going to complain. So far, pretty good. Pretty good. So last thing I want to do is marry the turret. So let me do this. I'm going to insert, I'm going to add, and I'm actually going to add the turret that I made in the other tutorial video. Load file, this one's a little more complicated. Loading file, okay, cool, import. It needs to be centered, and this is kind of a cheaty trick. The arrows are centered on the thing, but they're, so you can kind of get it where I think that's probably centered. And then I'm going to move it up. It needs to go back a little bit because I don't want it, I want it kind of on that sloped area. I think it's probably, is that too big? I can't tell if it's too big. It's got, I think what's going on, I think this is too tall maybe. Hard to tell. You got to kind of ballpark it. That might be a little too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab the whole thing, the turret, and I'm going to resize it down a little bit. I think that looks a little better. And then what I'm going to do, let me just make sure I resized it down to 87.3. I'm actually going to make that a nice round number of 85%. You'll see why in a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this just a little, and I want to make a new hole for this to sit in. So you can kind of see here versus here, it's not really centered. So I'm gonna, that's a little better. That's a little better. Okay, and then I think this is going to work. We'll see if this works. It may not work. I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to click this, and I am going to click Subtract. And what Subtract should do, click Subtract, and it's going to say please wait, and this is going to take a little bit of time. What it's doing is it's cutting the turret out of the vehicle. And really what I'm interested in doing is kind of making a hole in the top of the tank that matches the cylinder kind of that the turret is resting upon. And let me just give it a moment. In the meantime, hope everybody's day is going well. My plan is to print 3 of these play with them, and then when Maker's Cult eventually comes out with a much better version, throw mine away and print new ones, probably. So this does take a little bit of time. Hopefully it won't take too long. 3D Builder is not the most powerful, and my computer is not the most powerful. So if you're doing a subtract of like a rectangle box out of another rectangle box, it takes all of 2 seconds. This, it's having to create a whole bunch of new bits and bobs. So, and you can kind of rotate it while it's doing this. Also, I didn't make the turret gun. You would just get one and scale it up the exact same percent, which I think we had at 159%, something to that effect. So keep going. Come on, this is always the part. Like, I usually do this while I'm watching TV, because these kind of things are super boring. I feel like if you're staring at it, it's going to take 10 times longer than if you just walked away and did something else. So maybe what I'll do is I'll cut the video and then start a new one as soon as this is done, because otherwise I feel it's super boring. Maybe I can edit it? I don't know. This is like literally the first screen share video I've ever really done. So you guys can just sit here and maybe drag the little progress bar till you see something change on my screen.